Today's episode is brought to you by Sports Business Classroom. Landing a job in the NBA is no easy feat. One surefire way to put yourself in front of a competitive talent pool is if you master the collective bargaining agreement. And now you can, with a course developed by the godfather of the CBA himself, Larry Kuhn. Larry Kuhn has been teaching the CBA to teams, agents, media, and students for over 20 years, and now you can master the CBA through his online video on-demand course, which is now available to the public. If you're looking to break into basketball or even just set yourself apart, this is the competitive advantage you are looking for. To learn more about the video on-demand course that is being taken by teams and agents all over the world, please visit sportsbusinessclassroom.com today. Tyler, what's going on?
How you doing, man? I'm doing good.
Really excited for this one. A lot of the NTC guys really want to get on this show. Obviously, a lot of us being from Canada and really following your career, really enjoying your journey. But really excited to be doing this one right now, kind of diving into your story, your background, a lot of the stops you've made. This is going to be a really, really fun episode.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. And, whenever there's Canadians involved, you can count me in. So.
Got you. So, maybe starting us off with, everyone I'm sure jumps into your professional stops now, your NBA career, all that good stuff. But let's go a little bit further back. I'm curious about maybe what kind of first got you into the game of basketball, and when maybe as a kid really falling in love with it and making it such a big passion for you.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a big family, first of all, a basketball family. My dad's a coach, still coaching to this day. So I don't want to say I didn't have a choice, but I was in the gym from a very young age. I have two older brothers that also play. One is retired now, but he played collegiately. And my other older brother plays overseas currently now. So yeah, I grew up playing basketball as far back as I can remember. One of my earliest memories is, kind of being the young guy that they put on my brother's team, and I wouldn't play, but I got a jersey type of thing. And yeah, so from as far back as I can remember, I've been a basketball player, and from there I just grown. Growing up in Canada at the time, it wasn't the most popular sport. And obviously the sport's grown in Canada a ton to this day. And so we had to break a lot of barriers. Myself and the generation right before me broke a lot of barriers for the way it is now.
It's so cool. And that entire journey and breaking those barriers is so key. But you're right, talking about making as a kid, playing as a kid, and maybe not being forced, but right, just being kind of guided and seeing basketball, right, and all kind of growing up, seeing your brothers play and all that. What kind of made you realize, like, okay, I'm actually really good at this, and this could actually be something that I do for the rest of my life, and that I'm good at.
My first realization that I was good, or I want to say better than the average kid at the time. In Canada, I was always one of the biggest kids growing up, but also one of the best, and I believe that. And then it was my first tournament in the States, and at the time, nobody was really doing AAU tournaments, and so we would kind of the closest drives for us just where we'd go to AAU tournaments. So Buffalo is really close to Toronto, Detroit, just places like that. Rochester, we went, Syracuse. So I remember there was a tournament in Detroit. And I wasn't thinking about rankings. I was like maybe 10, 13, around that age group. And we played. And I've always played with older guys because I had older brothers. So this was my first time playing my age. And we played a team. And I remember we lost. And I was mad because I'm like, I play with older guys. I should be able to win this game by myself type of thing. So I remember the parents from the other team came up to me right after the game, like a group of them. And they were like, what are you ranked? And I'm like nothing. We don't have rankings in Canada. Like we're kids. And so they're like, well, we go to nationals every year, and you are the best player we've ever played. We have ranked guys on our team. And they told me the guys, and no disrespect to them, I don't know who they were, but I remember I'm like, if they're ranked, like I'm you know what I mean? I'm ahead of, I should be ahead of them. So from there, I'm like, okay, maybe I have something. And then from there it just grew. I think my realization that I could play pro, I would say sophomore year, when I started getting all the college interest, and I'm like, all right, I'm playing against guys committed to D1, high D1 schools, and I'm a sophomore and I'm out playing them. That's when I'm like, okay, by the time I'm a senior, I should be good to go. So
that's awesome. And you touched on a little bit about the difference maybe between growing up in Canada, maybe not having rankings like that, coming over, playing some tournaments here in the US, and it was a little bit different. You mentioned a little bit even before that, breaking that glass ceiling, kind of breaking those barriers. What did that look like for you, and kind of in seeing the differences between the way basketball, especially youth basketball, was in those two different countries?
Yeah, and it's kind of similar today, but back then you kind of had to be ranked. And once you got on that ranking is when the schools will come look, and it was a different world back then for Canadian kids. We didn't have D1 schools at all, much less high D1, coming up to Canada for no reason. You know what I mean? Whereas in the States, you can play a team, and if a guy on the opposing team is getting recruited, you have coaches in the gym, they're watching everybody, you know what I mean? So we just weren't in front of people. We didn't have it. It seemed like a long trip to them, I guess, and they didn't want to come up, or maybe they just didn't know the talent was there. And so we had to go to prep schools in the States, and it was hard for us. We had to get visas, and there's just a whole process, and you'd have to move away from home as a 14, 15-year-old kid, and that's what I did. My sophomore year, I transferred to St. Benedict's, away from home, living in a dorm in a city I've never been in, and that's kind of when my career really started. Up until that point, I think I was serious about basketball, but it wasn't a business. I lived at home with my parents. They drive me to games, and once I decided to go to a prep school is when I kind of made the promise to myself that I'd make it worth it, because obviously I was missing out on a bunch of the normal kid stuff, prom, living with my parents, being with my brothers and sisters. And that was like kind of the start of my professional journey, I'd say, in my sophomore year.
Definitely. So you made that sacrifice, you made that jump, and obviously ended up paying off. But kind of along that journey, right? I mean, I'm sure, right, you get that ranking. A lot of schools are coming in and looking at you. What made Syracuse the right fit for you? I'm sure, right, that was a really long recruiting process.
To be honest, it was a long recruiting process, but I've always had my eye on Syracuse. Like I said, I grew up in Toronto. We wouldn't really get college games back then. We'd get the big ones. We don't have ESPN. So we'd get the big ones that they decide to kind of give to us and show us on TV. But we had an AAU tournament, and I was like, I still have the picture actually. I was a super small young kid, and it was in the Carrier Dome, and they had like 8 to 10 courts. And so I'm like, hey, this is where I'm gonna go. Like, and of course, everybody says that when they go and see a big, the Carrier Dome. But I've always been in love with Syracuse. My uncle's a huge Syracuse fan. And from that moment till I committed, if you asked me, I would have told you Syracuse is my favorite school. And they weren't recruiting me at first. Sophomore year, I had a bunch of schools. They weren't on me. And my assistant coach kept emailing them. And once the recruiting process started, I kind of threw them on the back burner. I'm like, if it's meant to be, it'll come. They'll recruit me. And slowly enough, they started, calling and recruiting me. And they had a log jam at point guard at the time. So I didn't want to go there and sit. It's my dream school, but I didn't want to go and not play. So I was really close to going to Arizona, actually. And then Dion Waiters entered the draft early. Scoop Jardine graduated. Brandon Trish graduated. Michael Carter-Williams entered the draft, and it went from a log jam to literally nobody at the guard position other than Trevor Cooney and Michael Benajay, who not natural point guards. So for me, I'm like, all right, I get to go to my dream school and play right away. It kind of, was meant to be, in a little bit. So I committed there and never looked back.
That's crazy to think about. Just, I mean, obviously your belief in it, if it's meant to be, it'll be, and then it going from being a complete log jam to, right, it obviously was meant to be, and it opened up to where you had that opportunity, you're able to take it. Obviously really think for Syracuse, because you played really, really well when you were there. To walk us through that, maybe that season, what that experience was like, finally playing for your dream school.
Yeah, it was great. I think I would have enjoyed it no matter what. I think it's just a great school. For me, it's close to home. My parents were able to come to every game. And the tradition there, the fans are amazing. I don't mind the snow. Obviously, I grew up in Canada, which is everybody's main complaint in Syracuse. But yeah, it was great because I was able to play right away. I was able to be a young kid, freshman, starting on the #1 team in college basketball that year. And we had Michael Benajay was the backup, but he's more of a 2. And so I was able to play through mistakes. I was going to play as many minutes as my body could possibly do. Like, it was perfect. And I couldn't ask for anything more about the situation. And that's, I think, why I was able to thrive right away. I never went in planning to be a one and done. And I never thought obviously I wanted to go to the NBA. If you would have asked me, I probably would have told you maybe 2 years I'll be able to enter the draft. But it kind of just organically came about, playing well, playing for the #1 team. We went 25-0 to start the season. So there was a lot of eyes on us. And, I was playing well at that time. So I was able to enter the draft and, a projected lottery pick. I don't think you could ask for more as a 19-year-old kid trying to get to the NBA.
Definitely, man. That's such a cool experience. I think about winning all those games, right? Having that buzz, that chatter, right? Being projected to be a lottery pick. So, what was that draft process like? Then, right? Once the season ends, you're going, doing all these workouts, flying all these different cities. That must have been a lot in a really short amount of time.
Yeah, it's just like a whirlwind, and everybody says it, but that's the perfect way to kind of describe it. You go from, where they set your schedule every day. You're going to this class, you're going to work out, to, you know, the real world, and now you're an adult and you have to carry yourself and be responsible for yourself. So I think that's the biggest transition for people. But like I said, I went to a prep school where I was on my own. I was away from my family, so I was kind of already mature enough to handle that. Um, but yeah, just not knowing where you're going to get drafted. I was lucky enough. I knew I was going to get drafted in the first round, and I knew my range. A lot of guys don't have that luxury. Um, but I left early because, you know, I thought I could move up, and I knew the floor. I knew that, Toronto Raptors were picking 20th, and I knew I wasn't going to go past there. Um, and the following season, it might not have been the same situation. So I entered kind of with a free mind and going into workouts knowing that I kind of had a floor that I was going to reach. And, it was my hometown team. So I was like, that's not going to be the worst case scenario if it does happen. So, yeah, you fly around, you work out. I think for me at the time, I was more of I'm still a playmaker, pass first. So going into workouts where you're playing one-on-one, full court, no fouls, just a bunch of things I think that didn't suit my playing style. I think if you brought in 5 guys or 10 guys and we play 5-on-5, I would look a lot better than playing 2-on-2, no pick and roll, things that we were doing in those workouts. So I did slip a little bit, but like I said, I was able to still get drafted in the first round at 18.
Awesome, and it's interesting thinking about, right, the difference about how those workouts can be different from the real game, and right, how you showcase your abilities and compared in one workout compared to what it would be like in another one. It's fascinating, kind of thinking about the differences there and how right teams run it and all that stuff. But kind of going into your time in the NBA, what was maybe so different about that? Maybe the workouts were a little different. What was different about the NBA from maybe the college level, and how did you adjust?
Uh, Style of play, I think, is different. It's a lot faster. College, obviously, there's a shot clock, longer shot clock. People are running sets, and I would say because the coaches are running things. You go to a school like Syracuse, and you're not going, thinking you're going to run the team. James Boeheim's been there for a million years. He's gonna determine how things are going. Whereas if you go to the NBA, and it kind of depends on the team and the players you're with. I was physically not ready for the NBA. I was 19. I was 180 pounds, but I had skill, and I think that's what people have seen. And obviously, your body will mature. So I was able to, skill-wise, show what I could do, but I think I did need time to build my body up, build the strength up, and just to be productive. But obviously, being drafted where I went to the Suns with 3 other point guards ahead of me, Isaiah Thomas, Eric Bledsoe, Goran Dragic, where established all-star caliber point guards. Yeah, I wasn't going to play. So I think it was a terrible spot to get drafted because of that situation. But also I think, having time to kind of develop my body was a key part in them drafting me, not expecting me to play from day one.
For sure, and that obviously, right, we mentioned so many things about right fit or style or all those things. Maybe when you moved on from the NBA and now been playing overseas for the last few years, how's that been for you? Obviously, COVID kind of maybe made things a little bit crazy 2 years ago, but you've been playing all these different teams. I mean, it seems like that's been going really well.
Yeah, I've been playing well. I think I had I just completed my 3rd season overseas. 2 of them ended early because of injury. I've had 2 injuries, season-ending injuries, which suck, but I think I'm just kind of look at it a different light. I'm very fortunate to continue playing, and playing at the level I'm playing at. I think a lot of people didn't expect that, and a lot of people don't recover from Achilles tears the way I have been able to do. So I think I'm still, I still think I have room to grow in my game physically, and I think that's the exciting part. I think if I was kind of at, my peak, and I think it'd be a different conversation, but, I'm still improving. I think I'm better now after an Achilles tear and a broken leg than I was when I was playing for the Lakers in my fourth year. So I think that says a lot. Obviously, overseas basketball is different style of play, but I think if you put me on the court as a 25-year-old and now I'm 27, I think you'll see a big difference and a lot of improvement.
It's incredible, right? Making that big adjustment and becoming better, even with the injuries and whatever kind of adversity that maybe you've gone through. You actually, in turn, talking about getting better. You kind of tweeted out this morning about how today's maybe day one of your offseason going into this next season. So what is that? What is your offseason preparation looking like?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to get home a little bit earlier than most guys that play overseas. So this was my first year being able to take time off. The last 3 years, one was a broken leg, so I jumped right into rehab when I got home. Second was COVID, so the season kind of just ended, and that was a weird summer. And then last year was a torn Achilles, and so I jumped right into rehab again. So this is my first year of being able to kind of take a few days off, plan out my summer, plan out the things I want to work on, and I'm able to have a great team around me and people that could help me achieve those goals. And yeah, I think it's just for now we're working on a bunch of movement stuff, kind of getting your body back, wake yourself up after some time off, and then jump into some on-court workouts probably next week.
It's so much fun. And I think about all this excitement kind of coming into next season and what this is going to look for you is really, really cool. One thing that's maybe been a consistent theme throughout most of your career, unless you've been playing on a team with someone already wearing that jersey number, you've always been number 11. So, I mean, is there a backstory behind the number and maybe why you chose it?
Well, growing up, I actually talked to my fiance about this. She everything is number 11 for me, but I'm like, my favorite number is actually 1. Growing up, I always wore number 1. But like you said, if you go to you go to any other team, there's always a number 1 in the NBA, especially. So I realized that when I was young, and I kind of like, all right, I love number 1. Let me start wearing number 11. And a couple of my favorite players in high school, like Kyrie Irving, some other people were 11, so that played into it as well. But I've always been number 11 since high school, every year. And going to the NBA, obviously a rookie, you don't get to choose those numbers. But I was, I think I wore number 4 my rookie year because 11 was taken. I wore number 10 because it was taken. But like I said, if I could choose, number 11 is always that. And I say my favorite number is 1, but I kind of changed it before I got to the NBA, and it was number 11 at Syracuse as well.
Actually, it's still a really cool story and awesome thinking about how that's kind of been something that's been pretty consistent and I mean, really excited for this coming season for you. Will, of course, here no trade clause be following it. I really just want to thank you for taking the time to come on this show and stuff. Congrats on the new baby. I mean, everything's kind of really trending upwards, and I'm really excited to hear about all that. So good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me too. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it so much. Thanks so much, Tyler.
All right, have a good one.